And on to story number 2 now is on the Air India Flight 171 crash. Did you know, viewer, that today in Parliament, an absolutely stunning piece of information was put out? And I'm going to share that with you now because this is something that needs to be discussed threadbare in a country where millions of people take flights every single day. Air India pilots have been hit perhaps by something called crash fever. Is that an exaggeration? Well, consider this. Today in Parliament, the Minister of State for Civil Aviation told the upper house, the Rajya Sabha, that just a few days after the Air India Flight 171 crash, a record number of pilots, 112 pilots on a single day, called in sick. That's right, they reported that they were too ill to come into work on one single day, that is June the 16th, 4 days after the crash. This stunning statistic was released in Parliament today. This mass leave by Air India pilots on a single day has put the glare on mental health, stress, fatigue and other factors of pilots. Are they troubled? Are they disturbed? Are there psychological issues? Anxious passengers around the country who've been looking for clarity on what may have happened to the Air India Flight 171 are alarmed by this new statistics. It's been described as a minor increase in sick leave, but 112 pilots on a single day, we've asked around, is definitely not usual. So let's try and find out what this is really about. Is it a phenomenon that usually happens after a tragedy? And how should we all, as a general flying public, understand it? Captain Sharath Panicker is an ex-Air India pilot. He has flown Dreamliners as well. He also used to be with the Air Force and the DGCA. He joins me live. Welcome, Captain Panicker. Captain Kishore Chinta is also chief pilot with Sirius India Airlines Private Limited, and he's been very vocal on what we've been looking at here. Captain Chinta, I'd like to come to you first. 112 pilots calling in sick 4 days after the AI 171 crash. How do you read this, because the paragraphs following it in the answer given in Parliament talk about mental health, psychological issues and things like that?
Good evening, Shiv. Thank you for having me on your show. I think naming it as mental health, yes, it's got to do with mind. Post-traumatic stress disorder is a thing. We need to accept that. Such a catastrophic crash happening. Many of those pilots would have probably flown with either Captain Sumit Sabharwal or Clive Kundal. Imagine people who you have shared the flight deck with.
Yes.
They're no more with you, and it takes a lot of courage to go back, fly the same type of airplane. I don't know whether all of these pilots were from the 787 fleet, or I'm sure it's across fleets, but this is for pilots across. There is no shame in saying that, hey, I'm anxious, I'm not up to it today. It's better to do that and have the courage to say that than go and fly with a disturbed mind. Everyone, even every pilot's a human being.
Yes.
Tomorrow, if someone loses a loved one, you don't expect them to function normally the next day. The distress, it's a high-stress job.
Yeah.
So there is no shame in accepting. And you can call it crash fever, you can call it post-traumatic stress disorder, you can call it anxiety, you call it whatsoever. But it is normal. There's nothing untoward. I'm sure if we start adding the number of cabin crew who would have probably called in sick, the numbers would be much, much higher.
That is correct. That number is much higher. It wasn't given in this particular answer, but yes, we did separately check on that, and that number is almost 3 times that number. Captain Panicker, a very serious issue, because we're talking about things like psychological issues and mental health. But like Captain Chinta said, and that's the reason why we're doing this show, because we wanted to put that into perspective, before someone sort of exaggerates what this really means and, makes it sound like something it's not. But pilots are human. When a tragedy like this happens, they already have a very stressful job. Many pilots on a single day calling in sick like this, is it unusual or totally understandable according to you, sir?
First and foremost, let us understand the gravity of the situation.
Yeah.
We've had a catastrophic crash with no apparent explanation. A dual engine failure is such a remote event, an absolutely remote event, which happens, let's say, one in about a million flying hours. And a dual engine failure on takeoff, practically unheard of in the history of civil aviation. So you've had a situation in which an aircraft has just barely gotten airborne, and before you can think of anything, as the pilots are in the process of rotation, suddenly they've lost all power. The worst nightmare that a pilot can think of, a dual engine failure practically on rotation.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned earlier on in several of the shows, since I am coming from a fighter background, this is a sort of an event which nothing and nobody can train you for. The situations that are envisaged of a dual engine failure are primarily at altitude, where you have 40,000 feet of altitude to play around with and a decent chance of trying to start the engines again and again and again as required. In a situation like this, there is not enough time for the engines to relight. Even if the engine start switches were put to run, assuming that it has been cut off in the first place, if it's been put to run within about a second or two, considering the amount of altitude that that aircraft had, it is practically impossible for a relight to take place. As has been shown in this report itself by the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, the engines were in the process of relight. Whatever time it has taken to transition these fuel control switches back from cutoff to run, it was in the process of relight. But obviously, there is not enough time, there is not enough altitude. The figures that are available to us in our quick reaction handbook talks only about an engine relight at altitude. And it says that this relight may take up to 2 minutes, time which is simply not available immediately after takeoff. So coming back to the situation at hand, I would say the first reaction is shock. Nobody has ever heard of a situation like this, of a dual engine failure happening within 3 seconds of liftoff. If you cast your mind back to the miracle on the Hudson, Captain Sullenberger had 3,000 feet of altitude to play around with. He had time to take over controls, look around, attempt to relight if any, choose a place to
Captain Panicker, I appreciate your words, but that wasn't my question at all. I'm
trying to give you a little bit of background, Shiv.
Yeah.
The basic idea is that it is complete shock.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, all pilots and cabin crew are humans. If you have something unexplained that is happening to a colleague who's just recently been with you, the first reaction is, oh my God, am I in a state to safely pilot an aircraft now?
Yeah.
If the answer to that is no, then you're fully justified in reporting sick.
Absolutely interesting. I apologize for interrupting you. You're right. I mean, that actually paints a pretty vivid picture of why someone would, find themselves at sea a little bit and need some time off to kind of just reconsolidate mentally and get back to work. We've just got a few questions that we want to ask before we go back to our guests. Just some information as far as piloting is concerned, because remember, pilots have some of the most difficult jobs in the world. There is already, what we're reporting now is an increase in pilots taking sick leave just in the wake of what happened. Not unusual, you've heard both our guests actually say. You can call it mass leave, even though there are thousands of pilots already in service with Air India. This was about 112 pilots who took leave. It's a big number, but operations were not badly hit. That we can, of course, confirm completely. There is a glare on mental stress and psychological impact, as is enunciated in that Parliament answer. There's already, remember, this glare on safety concerns and scrutiny as part of the larger investigation. There have been show cause notices that have been issued to Air India and various other cases in separate issues, of course. All of this has only increased the glare and anxiety in people's minds. Captain Chinta, I'd like to come back to you on the issue of, now that we've established that this is normal and there's nothing to be alarmed about it. Tell us about how pilots are doing in service. Do they have adequate rest? Do they have adequate measures in terms of mental health? Are there frequent assessments? Are there any lacunae or loopholes there? Or are things pretty much on track in that respect, sir?
Shiv, I don't think there are any mechanisms to assess stress or mental health. I could have had adequate rest by the book, 12 hours or whatever is the flight duty time limitations.
Yes.
But when I come in the morning or whatever time I report for my duty, is there a mechanism to assess my stress levels or how well I have slept? Is there a indication, any mechanism which will indicate that I'm not as well rested as I should have been? No, we do not have any of that. So probably there is a time when I think Indigo was trying to introduce, mechanisms to monitor sleep patterns and other stuff. Probably, I mean, I'm sure the pilot fraternity will say it's impinging upon, their privacy and other stuff. But if not that, there should be some mechanism to assess stress. Whenever I fly, I definitely ask my co-pilot, have you slept well? All is well. It's something. I mean, like Captain Panicker would agree with me. Every single senior I've flown with back in the Air Force, if it was a trainer in fighter, I'm sure I've always been asked, did you sleep well? All well? And if I didn't sleep well, or if I had one too many drinks the previous night, not once have I ever been asked a question. I could go to the flying program board, circle my name, and no questions asked. So I think it is time the airlines realize that your pilots, your cabin crew, your engineers, they are your foot soldiers. They are your cavalry, they are your armored division, everything. So you maintain a healthy atmosphere for them, all will be well. They are the ones who are going to face the passengers. They are the ones who are going to make a reputation for you.
Captain Panicker, is there anything more that can be done for pilots by the airlines? 60 seconds, I'm almost out of time. A prescription, quick one, sir.
Okay. And FTTL is only a guideline. Most flying programs, most of these apps which are there, especially the Jepson app, it's a soulless app. It has no soul. It just finds gaps where people are available and assigns them duties. So that you find that a person has to go from one flight to another, transition to another, cabin crew is coming from somewhere else, cockpit is coming from somewhere else, there is a new aircraft which has come, some delays happen. So stress levels are continuously increasing. My suggestion is already robust policies are in place. I've seen it in Air India myself just before I retired. There have been innumerable, directions towards support groups, buddy groups, help, etc. My suggestion to people that run airlines would be to have a bit of soul. Like Captain Kishore is very prominently brought out, 12 hours of rest is theoretical. But did he actually rest in that period? What happens if this 12 hours of rest was between, let's say, 12 at night to, let's say, 9 in the morning? What did he come out from? Is he actually rested? So the only solution to that is for him to carry out a self-examination and say, am I fit to fly today? And it should be non-punitive, not be taken away.
As we wait for more clarity, on the probe, the investigation, I think a bit of soul is a very evocative way to look at what more can perhaps be done, not just in terms of what the airlines can do, but also perhaps the public understanding of what airlines and pilots are really all about. Captain Panicker and Captain Chinta, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for being with me on this important and brief discussion. Thank you very much.